Injuries are a part of football, and every professional player knows that at some point they will be forced to spend time on the sidelines, but sometimes injuries can be much more serious than a couple of weeks on crutches. Whether it's muscle, bone, joint or ligament problems, injuries can occasionally force players to retire early. From World Cup winners and world-class strikers to the worst broken leg in Premier League history, here are 10 injuries that have ruined football careers. Marco van Basten is one of the best strikers of all time. He scored 152 goals in 172 games for Ajax and later became the star of the legendary AC Milan of Arrigo Sacchi. Van Basten has won 3 Eredivisie titles, 3 Serie A titles and 2 Champions League titles. He also helped Holland win Euro '88 with a spectacular volley in the final against the Soviet Union. Van Basten won the Ballon d'Or for the 3rd time in 1992, but trouble was around the corner. The Dutchman had already had ankle problems. It started in 1987 and then meant he only played 11 league games in his first season at Milan. Van Basten injured the same ankle again in late 1992. He underwent several operations but failed to solve the problem. The striker returned in time for the 1993 Champions League final against Marseille, but that would be his last game since Milan. Tragically, at just 28, Van Basten was forced to hang up his boots. Roy Keane is one of the toughest men in Premier League history. You would have to be very brave or very stupid to go through it. Alfinger Haaland, Erling Haaland's father, did exactly that in 1997. The Leeds midfielder accused Keane of faking injury when the man's captain had a bad cruciate ligament in his knee. Some people boast that they hold no grudges. Keane is not one of those people. 4 years later he retaliated. Haaland was now playing for Manchester City, so tensions were even higher than normal. Towards the end of the match at Old Trafford, Keane threw a knee-high horror tackle on the Norwegian, who collapsed in pain. It's a myth that Keane ended Haaland's career. The contrast was in his right knee, but Haaland had problems with his left knee for a while. In fact, they finished the match against United, but the left knee surgery didn't work, so he had to retire in 2003. Owen Hargreaves. Canada-born England international Owen Hargreaves began his career at Bayern Munich of all places. After winning 4 Bundesliga titles and then the Champions League, he joined Manchester United in 2007. It wasn't long before his injury nightmare began. Hargreaves only played occasionally in the 08-09 season due to knee tendinitis. He flew to the United States to see a specialist surgeon and operated on both knees. Hargreaves finally returned to the Premier League in 2010, but his knee problems affected the rest of his body and he spent quite some time with muscle injuries. He left United in 2011 despite being offered to play for free next season. He then posted a series of videos on YouTube to prove to the clubs that he was fit enough to continue playing. Manchester City were convinced and gave him a 1-year contract, but Hargreaves only played 4 times for the club before ending his career at 31. Fernando Redondo is another player whose career ended prematurely at Milan. The elegant Argentine midfielder is best remembered for his 6 years at Real Madrid. He was the attacking midfielder of the teams that won the Champions League in 1998 and 2000. After that second success, he was sold to Milan against his will. In one of his first training sessions, Redondo tore his anterior cruciate ligament. The doctor who operated on him was not a knee specialist. Redondo tried to train through the pain barrier, but it didn't work. In the end, he hasn't played for 2.5 years. He also asked Milan to stop paying salaries because he felt he didn't deserve them. Redondo eventually made 33 appearances for AC Milan, but another knee injury forced him to retire in 2004. The Brazilian won the World Cup and the Ballon d'Or even after knee problems, but he has never been the same player since. Ronaldo was the best player in the world in the late 90s. He was about to become a GOAT contender, but in 1999 striker's knee bent during a match. He underwent surgery on his torn tendon and returned a few months later, but in the return match Ronaldo's knee gave out again. This time it was more serious. He has barely played for 3 years and doctors have warned that his career may be over. Ronaldo did incredibly well to come back with his international team. They even climbed to the top of the table by winning the World Cup in 2002 before signing for Real Madrid. After the tournament, Ronaldo continued to play until the age of 30, but he was a different player. After injuries, he no longer had the explosive pace that made him so special. If it weren't for his tricky knee, he might have become the absolute best of the history. Jack Wilshere was once the next big thing. His performance for Arsenal against Barcelona in the Champions League was legendary, and he was named Arsenal Player of the Year in 2011. He had the world at his feet and was destined for the top, but that was also the year he injured his ankle for the first time. Unfortunately for Wilshere, he never fully recovered. Wilshere was initially banned for 17 months, but his ankle bothered him for nearly a decade. Arsenal let him go in 2018 and Wilshere joined West Ham on a free transfer but barely played for the Hammers due to fitness issues. Wilsh is still only 28, but his career at the top seems to be over already. Abou Diaby was another midfielder whose career was plagued by nagging injuries. Diaby spent the first 2 years of her career with Auxerre in France. In 2006, Arsène Wenger brought him to Arsenal by beating Jose Mourinho and signing him. Just 4 months after moving to North London, Diaby was the victim of a terrible tackle from Sunderland's Dan Smith that left him with a broken ankle. Diaby needed 3 operations and the doctors told him his career could be over. He struggled and returned to the field in 2007, but his broken ankle had a long-term impact on his body. The injuries seemed to cause an imbalance in his body and he suffered from various muscle and ligament problems for the rest of his career. In 9 years at Arsenal he apparently had 37 different injuries. Diaby returned to France with Marseille in 2015 but made only 5 league appearances for the club before being forced to retire. Nedley King. England were blessed with a fantastic generation of centre-backs in the 2000s. John Terry, Rio Ferdinand and Sol Campbell are 3 of the best in Premier League history. The 3-3 lines could also count on Jonathan Woodgate, Jamie Carragher and Nedley King. King was one of the most gifted naturally, strong, athletic, intelligent and good with the ball. The Spurs captain had what it takes to be a first-class central defender. The only problem was his injury history. King suffered his first knee injury in 2006. He had no knee cartilage, so there was nothing to operate on. King was able to play, but then his knee swelled and it took him a week to recover. Incredibly, King continued to play this way until the age of 31. Michael Owen had the world at his feet early in his career. He has scored more than 20 goals a season for Liverpool year after year. He also won the Ballon d'Or in 2001 in front of Raul, Oliver Kahn, and David Beckham. Owen's game was based on rhythm. He used to hang on the shoulder of the last defender and sprint behind. His dizzying speed and lethal finishing made him one of the most dangerous strikers in the world, but hamstring problems gradually took his pace and without him he was never the same player. He was first injured by Owen in 1999. Never healed properly. He also had ankle, thigh, and knee problems. Owen played for Real Madrid and Manchester United after leaving Liverpool, but Anfield was the only place he was truly world-class. David BUSST isn't as famous as the other players in this video, but his injury was far worse than the other 9 had to endure. In fact, it could be the most horrific football injury of all time. It happened in 1996 when BUSST was playing for Coventry against Manchester United. The defender ran for a corner and collided with 2 United players who fractured their right tibia and fibula. United goalkeeper Peter Schmeichel threw up after seeing the condition of BUSST's leg, and play was paused for about 10 minutes while the blood was cleared from the field. Some doctors thought that BUSST's leg should have been amputated in the end. He didn't, but the Englishman needed 22 operations to try and repair the damage. He officially retired a few months later when doctors told him that trying to return was too great a health risk.